You need to know about this recipe from Jason Smith because it is red snapper season here on the Gulf Coast. A lot of folks will be out catching snapper this weekend, and if you want a great way to cook them, he's here to show us how.
Yeah, he's got a delicious recipe. Here's meteorologist Jason Smith.
Okay, today we're going to cook some red snapper, and one of the keys to having good snapper is to actually freeze it properly. If you want to do it frozen, you want to use some vacuum sealing techniques. That gets all the air out of the bag and keeps them from getting freezer burn. It also makes it easier to thaw them out, and you want to actually freeze it in sizable portions that you can eat. So here's the sample right here. We thawed this out slowly in the fridge over time, and now I've taken the fillets out of the bag, and I've actually been really careful to come in here and trim these fillets up and get any bones out of the fillets, get any extra skin off that was missed in the cleaning. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and get started cooking, and the first thing is I want to talk about my ingredients. This is a very simple recipe. We're going to saute some fresh snapper with snapper season now being in across the Gulf Coast, and I'm going to saute this. First thing I'm going to do to prepare it is I'm going to put a little bit of Greek seasoning on the snapper fillets. Then I'll work it back and forth across through some flour, and then I'm going to saute it in a combination of oil and butter. And this is actually grapeseed oil, so this is a high temperature oil. You can use olive oil too, and regular butter. And then as I'm sauteing it, I'm going to add a little bit of lemon to the mix. So here's how we do it. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of this Greek seasoning and on both sides of my fillets, and if the snapper are kind of thick, you can always cut the fillet down into a smaller size. That'll allow it to cook better. Sometimes you catch some really big ones and they're a little bit more difficult to cook all the way through, and you want this all to turn out at about the same time. So I'm putting light Greek seasoning on both sides of the fillets, and then I'll end up putting it in some flour. The whole time I've got my skillet heating up on medium-high heat. The key to cooking fish is to cook it hot and fast. All right, so I've got a good amount of seasoning on the fillets. Now I'm going to take them and work them back and forth and just lightly flour the fillets. When these fillets came out of the vacuum seal, there was a little moisture associated with it. It's always a good idea to pat them down on some paper towels so that the fillets are dry before you go to cook them. So just enough flour to kind of dust these fillets. This is going to give it a little bit more of a golden brown finish when we get ready to cook them. I'm going to add a little oil to the skillet first as it's heating up, and then add some butter. I'm not deep frying it, so I just need a thin coating of oil. It's enough to keep the fish from sticking. And then I'll add a little bit of butter, about that much, to the skillet. Let it melt on down and kind of mix in with the oil. The oil keeps the butter from burning as much, but the butter gives it a really great flavor. So I'm just gonna kind of spread around here and get it started. I've got a spatula here too. That's a little better tool. That's what I'm gonna be using to actually flip the fish. So this is all heating up, getting hot, getting ready. Okay, skillet's getting hot. We're almost ready to start with the fish. And this is really a family recipe. My grandfather and my mother both taught me how to cook fish this way. Okay, the skillet's starting to turn a little brown. That means it's just about right time to put the fish fillets in. I'm going to put my thicker fillets in first. So we're going to go ahead and get started with those. And then I'll add some of these less thick pieces last because they're going to cook a little faster. Just put it in for the first time. We're just cooking it in the olive oil and butter, and it's browning but not blackening. And what we're doing, we're just sauteing it in some butter and some oil and adding a little bit of Greek seasoning to it. Then you put some lemon on it. All that's going to give you the flavor that you need. Red snapper is an excellent table fare kind of a fish, so it doesn't need a whole lot to get it to where you want it to be ready to cook and eat. This piece looks like it's about ready. Here, it only takes a couple of minutes on each side. I might leave that one on just a little longer because some of these thick ones take a while. But that gives you a good idea of what it looks like when it's done. Sauteed red snapper, real simple recipe, cooked in grapeseed oil and butter. and then also using a little bit of Cavender's Greek seasoning along with some flour, lightly dusting it flour, and then sauteing it over medium-high heat, finishing it off with a little bit of lemon. Is it good? Mm-hmm. Yum. Excellent food to eat.
Chief and chef.
And Dad, we saw a little family action going on there at the end. That looked like a great recipe. I'm getting hungry here in the studio.
Yeah, super easy too. That's what we talked about the other day with Chef Nino. Fish is so easy to cook and it's delicious, healthier for you, so that's a good recipe to go by.
Keep that in mind, red snapper anglers out there.